Okay, I got 7:03. Let's go ahead and call this meeting to order. Could we see who's online? We got all or all trustees present. Okay. Okay, yeah. Okay, I see him up there. Yeah, if you'd all join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we do have an addition to the agenda on item 7. We need what? A correction, pardon me. To the agenda on item 7, we need to add a public hearing item in on that. Do we have any other additions, deletions, or corrections? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
I move that we accept the agenda with the correction to number 7, and that was for a public hearing.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
I second that.
It's been moved and seconded. We basically accept the agenda as corrected. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, with that, we'll move into item number 3, public comment. Do we have any public commenters?
I have one registered.
Okay.
Oh. That I really need a microphone. My voice travels quite well. My name is Howard Price. Not sure which address I should give, but we'll try 6565 Grant. 10675, that ought to sound familiar, Hondo, and a couple others. I want to talk to you about what I found out accidentally that I should have known about probably about a year ago. I want to talk about your pump station that's going to go in, that you allowed Colorado Springs Utilities to work on. First of all, my understanding, since I was a member of the board, was that we were to represent, the board is to represent the town, protect it, and its citizens. I don't feel protected. I don't think the town is protected. And I think you guys should be ashamed of yourselves. I need to know the following. I need to know when you knew about the plan to build that pump station at where you got it on Hondo. I need to know what the deal was between the MDs, this town, and Colorado Springs Utilities. I want to know why Colorado Springs Utilities isn't using their own land beyond the gate, put in a pump station. I want to know why isn't the proposed pumping station underground like the other 3 or 4 that we have? Why must there be a building built of over 1,000 square feet? Why? I was never notified that this was going to be built next to one of my houses, a house that my family uses. especially on Hondo, which those of you that have been on the board, or if there's anybody here that lives on Hondo, knows how bad that road gets in the spring and in the winter. It's probably the steepest, longest road in this town. I did contact an engineer, and I was told there's probably no advantage for having the pumping station at 10685 Hondo over having it in their own land on the other side of the gate.
Yeah,
I want to know.
I'll need you to be wrapping up. Okay, thank you.
Why specifically I was not notified. I had to read it on the internet accidentally when I saw new pumping station coming to Green Mountain Falls. I'm going, that's interesting. And then I find out it's going to be my next door neighbor. My understanding is you people knew about this a year ago. You didn't protect me. You're not helping the town. And I think you're afraid of Colorado Springs utilities. Petrified of them, like a lot of other people. I wasn't. I fought them, I won. I saw the type of road work they did on a project on Grant Street, where I currently live full time. It was terrible. It was horrible. And they're going to screw up that town, that street right there at the very beginning of Hondo, where people will not be able to get up to their houses without a real fight. I don't know why you accepted it, but I really need those answers, because I do intend to file an injunction against the city of Colorado Springs utilities. Thank you.
Thank you for comment, and if you'd work with our staff to get your answers.
Sorry, didn't I hear?
You would need to work with our staff to try to get your answers.
I tried that. I was told to talk to their public relations manager. Public relations manager doesn't do that job. Their job is to fluff things up and make the utilities department look good.
Again, thank you for your comments, but we need to move on. Do we have other commenters? You need to wait for the microphone because people on Zoom can't hear you if you don't.
Okay. My name is Mac Patron. I live at 10840 Myrtle Street. Been a resident of Green Mountain Falls for considerably over 40 years. I agree with every word that Howard said. I think that you probably should be ashamed of yourself. The city of Colorado Springs Utilities Department considers themselves the center of the known universe. They've been running roughshod over every customer that they have since they came into existence. In the early 1920s, they destroyed the water resource for the town of Green Mountain Falls. Consequently, they granted the town free water for the 88 taps that we had at that time, and for 60 years charged the other residents of Green Mountain Falls and Chipeta Park and Cascade and whoever else they sold water to 1.5 times what they charged the citizens of Colorado Springs. The difference being that everyone in due past got untreated water until the early 1980s, when the federal government decided that the city of Colorado Springs must provide treated water. At that time, they decided, the utilities board decided that it should be user pay. So $1.5 million or $2 million water treatment plant was going to be put on the residents of Green Mountain Falls, Peter Park, and whoever else was their customer. Several people in Green Mountain Falls got together and we went down to a couple of the utility board meetings, and thanks to the Colorado Springs mayor at the time, Mary Makepeace, we shamed them into putting the bill for the water treatment plant that sits here on the hill. And only because she felt guilty that they had been getting 1.5 times the rate for untreated water as they were selling water to their residents in Colorado Springs. I can go on for an hour at least, giving you the history of that. And what you need to know is that you at the time that they decided that they were going to do their work on Hondo, you had an opportunity. I don't know if you do anymore, but you had an opportunity to serve the community by demanding that they lower the water rates. And there's no reason why you shouldn't have done that. There are still plenty of people around who were involved in that mess that they call the water treatment plant in the 80s. And for 40 years, we've been paying 1.5 times the rate as every resident in Colorado Springs. So it's time that we started getting treated a little fairly. If you want to hear any more about the history of that, and frankly, I will tell you that the city of Colorado Springs probably has the finest water system on earth. If you ever get a chance to look at the physical display of what they do, it's fascinating and it's first rate. The point is that they feel like everybody else deserves to pay 1.5 times what they charge their customers in town, and it needs to change. And I'm sorry, but you guys kind of blew the opportunity to negotiate that. There's no reason why the people in Green Mountain Falls or anywhere else in Ute Pass should have to be paying the amount of money they pay for water. And you had a perfect opportunity to change that, and you didn't. Thank you. Oh, by the way, if you want to hear any more of this history, and I got a lot of history about Colorado Springs utilities in the back of my mind, and I'm an old man, but it doesn't matter. I remember vividly. But and if you're interested in finding out what some of that history is, I'd be happy to do it, but I won't do it in private. It's going to have to be at a public meeting so that the word comes out, because I don't know that any of you knew that you were paying 1.5 times the rate for water as everybody in Colorado Springs.
Mac, I need you to
Understand.
finish it up. You've gone well over your time. Do we have another? Thank you for your comment, Mac. Do we have other commenters?
Nancy Dixon. I live at 11045 Iona Avenue. I'm not here to rag on CSU. My comments are about the budget, and I'm putting on my trail ambassador hat, and I'm going to advocate for the trail ambassadors. This past year, we just finished our second full year of trail ambassadors, and we welcomed and we educated close to 1,500 hikers and visitors this summer. In fact, Green Mountain Falls was recognized by Trails and Open Spaces Coalition as the gold standard of programs for small communities around this area. In 2021, the board approved a trail ambassador budget, but it wasn't put into the budget for this year. So all my expenditures came out of pocket, and that included my t-shirts, because I had extra trail ambassadors I needed to buy t-shirts for. And also the end of the year town volunteer recognition luncheon that I was fortunate to have some of a anonymous donor provide some of it, but the other part of it came out of my pocket. So it would be really great if this year I could get a budget that I could have some money for T-shirts. I have 5 new ambassadors signed up for next year, so I do need new T-shirts and also to help with that volunteer luncheon. One of the tools that trail ambassadors need are trail maps. And for 2 years, I've been patiently asking for town trail maps. At the very beginning, 2 years ago, it was because of encroachment issues. And now those have all been resolved. So I would really love to have a town trail map that's accurate. And Pocket Pals has quoted PRT $1,200 to get big maps to put on the trailheads and also smaller maps that the trail ambassadors can use. So I would really appreciate if you would consider putting us in your budget for 2023. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your comment. Others? Anyone on Zoom, would you like to comment? Do I need to work on that mic? Okay. Is it not picking up out on Zoom?
Anybody on Zoom now?
Nate, are you seeing anyone wanting to comment on Zoom?
No raised hands or anything.
Okay. We're not seeing any comments on for any raised hands on Zoom right now, so we'll go ahead and move on to our consent agenda. Item number 4 is our minutes from November 29th Board of Trustees meeting. And if there's no corrections, I'd entertain a motion.
I move that we accept the consent agenda, including the minutes from November 29th, 2022.
I second that.
It's been moved to say we approve the consent agenda from November 29th. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, moving on to item number 5, our land use code rewrite. We have Austin ready to go through the presentation.
Yes, Austin's online. Let me set this up for him. Okay, Austin, can you hear me?
I can.
All right, let me get to your presentation and I can go through it like we did last time.
Perfect. Thanks, Nate. Well, thank you all for having me tonight. I'm excited to be with you all. I know I haven't met many of you. My name's Austin Flanagan. I work with Jeff Parker in the city attorney's office. And I was brought on for this land use code update. And my background is in this work particularly. I used to work for Clarion Associates, which is a national land use consulting firm, mostly rewriting communities' land use codes across the country. So I was excited to be brought on for this project. So the first thing I'll mention is that this was a very tight timeline, and we had an awesome team working on this project. You have an incredible group of staff members, an incredible group with the Planning Commission, led by Lamar Matthews, who really spearheaded this project and did so in a very quick and efficient way. So big thank you to everyone who made this project successful, I hope. Okay, so with that, we'll go straight into the timeline and talk about sort of the process of this project. Let's see. Oh, perfect. Okay, so as I said, this was a really quick timeline, certainly the fastest code rewrite I've ever been a part of. I joined this project in about August, and we were able to squeeze in a lot of revisions, feedback, and discussion in that time, including 4 separate drafts. That's 4 different drafts to which the public was able to comment on, as well as community and staff members and anyone else who wanted to comment on these drafts. So 4 different opportunities and 4 different revisions in that very short timeline. And then we were also able to squeeze in a full month of public engagement led by your planning commission. And so that was an effort by the planning commission to try to get this draft in as many people's hands as possible throughout the community and to try to solicit as much feedback as possible on that draft. And just last week, the planning commission unanimously recommended adoption of the land use code. And that brings us to today, where we have the Board of Trustees adoption hearing. And I just wanted to point out really quickly before we jump into more of the substance tonight that if there are things in this draft that you would like shifted or changed, it's not too late. You can do that as a condition of approval in your motion tonight if you so choose. So I just wanted to point that out. If there's things in this draft that you'd really like to see amended in some way, we could still do that, and you can still do it tonight if you so choose as a part of your motion. Okay, so let's jump into more of the substance. Perfect, thanks, Nate. Okay, so when I was brought on board, the town really asked a couple of things for this project. One was that they wanted a really simplified land use code, and the second was that they wanted this code tailored to a small mountain town like Green Mountain Falls. They wanted it specifically tailored to the needs and land use patterns in the town, and they didn't feel like they had that at the time. And so what that brought us to is what was previously an 110-page draft down to 59 pages. So about cut in half the actual material. So how are we able to do that? How are we able to get rid of about half the content of your land use code? Well, it came from a lot of consolidation, consolidating similar processes, consolidating similar standards, removing redundancies, and simplifying throughout. And then within that, you'll see a spectrum of revisions. So on one end, you'll have a couple of provisions in the land use code that were just carried forward. They were working well, so we just brought them forward as is. And then next, you'll see a level up from that, where there's a lot of minor repairs. And I would say pretty much the entire land use code falls into at least that category, where there's minor repairs and revisions and trying to tighten up the language, make it simpler, make it easier to understand. And then lastly is the third bucket, and that bucket is where things are completely new and replaced. And those are the issues that I'm going to focus on tonight. So I'm going to focus on some of the big changes in this land use code as currently drafted. And those 6 boxes down below represent the 6 chapters that this land use code is organized into. And we'll start off with the first one, general provisions. So I just wanted to get out really out front of the question of how does this land use code apply? There were several questions through the public engagement process on this question. How is this really going to change things? Well, your land use code, just as it does today and just as it will hopefully when this land use code is adopted, it applies to all land in the town. There's no land that is exempt from the land use code. But everything that's currently in existence doesn't have a further requirement to come into conformance with the new code. In other words, if you've already built your home under previous standards, you don't have to do anything to come into conformance with new standards if those standards did change. But I will say one of the big priorities with this land use code was to actually reduce nonconformities. So where there were areas where folks were already having legal nonconformities on their lots, one of our goals was try to reduce those, to bring those properties into conformity and not to create additional nonconformities. So one quick example to illustrate this point. So say you have a single family dwelling in the home that was permitted under a previous land use code. So nothing about that structure will have to change, right? That structure is completely legal today as it will be after the adoption of this land use code. But say, for example, that property owner wants to change how they're using that single family dwelling. So they're not changing the structure at all, but say they want to use that single family dwelling as a short-term rental. Well, in that case, they will have to come into conformance with the short-term rental requirements. They will have to come into conformance with new regulations, these short-term rental requirements. So just one example that I hope illustrates the point of how this code applies. And with that, we'll move into the districts. And I know I'm going really quickly. I want to leave plenty of time for conversation and for any questions you guys might have. Great. Cool. Okay, so when I look through your district lineup, and when I do this in communities throughout the country, I ask the question, are there meaningful differences between existing districts? So that's the first question I ask. If the answer is no, then they're probably prime targets for consolidating those districts and to try to simplify a little bit further. And then the second question I ask is, are we missing a district that gets at a town goal? In other words, is there a town goal that's missing from the land use code that isn't addressed in the land use code? So that's how I go about these district lineup revisions. And so with that, just a quick overview of how this lineup is different from your current code. So the R1 district, there was a consolidation there. That's a consolidation of your current R1 district and your current 5A district. Your R2 district was a carry forward, no change there. Your MX1 district, that's new, that's a mixed use district, and it's a combination of your current business and PF district. And then your open space district was just renamed, and that was renamed for clarity because your current district PL refers to public lands, and open space can be held either privately or publicly. So just a clarification on the terminology there, but pretty much a carry forward. The PUD district is also a carry forward. And then these last two districts are new, both of these overlays. So this historic preservation overlay is new in theory, and that you don't currently have a mapping procedure for your historic properties. So what this is doing is making it easier for folks to understand where historic properties are, and that they would now be mapped as a part of the zoning map. So it's just an overlay. We're not changing the base district. We're not rezoning anyone. All we're doing is showing where current historic preservation properties are mapped today, and that would show up on your zoning map, which isn't the case today. And then this other district I do want to spend a little bit of time on, and this is the Downtown Village Overlay District. So if actually we want to move to the next slide, Nate. Great. Okay. So when I ask that second question, when I look at the district lineup, are we missing a district that gets at furthering town goals? I think the answer we found in conversations with the Planning Commission was yes, that there was a district missing here. And we looked to adding this district to further the policy goal and the comprehensive plan to promote high quality development downtown that's particularly pedestrian oriented. However, we didn't want to do this as a mandate. We didn't want to require property owners to, even in the downtown area, to meet any higher standards. We wanted this instead as a tool that property owners could use if they chose, and that the town would get the further benefit of meeting this policy goal. And so just to be very clear, if you guys approved this land use code today, this downtown village overlay would sit dormant in your land use code just as a tool. It would not apply anywhere until a property owner asks for it to apply. And so it's only when a property owner says, you know what, I really like the ideas in that downtown village overlay, I want it applied to my property, and ask the town to go through that rezoning process, that this district would apply. Otherwise, it will continue to just sit dormant in your land use code as a tool until a property owner chooses to take advantage of it. So this district operates as one part incentives and one part additional design requirements. So essentially what we're saying to property owners, if you help us reach this policy goal of creating really high quality development downtown that's pedestrian oriented, which we know is a big goal of the town from the comprehensive plan update, where there was a lot of public comments on, we love the look and the feel of downtown buildings. Why can't we have more of that? That was a really common feedback that we got during the comprehensive plan process. So if you help us reach that policy goal, then we will give you some benefits as well, like a reduction in required parking and maybe some additional height as well. So I just wanted to take some time to go over that. I know it's new and it can be a little bit confusing, so I'm happy to talk about it in more detail, but definitely wanted to get out in front of that one. Okay, let's move on to your uses chapter. And I just have 2 more slides and then I will stop talking. And I would love to hear from all of you. Okay, so in your uses chapter, I won't spend a ton of time here other than to say you have a new use table. So it's a much more simplified organization. All of your standards and requirements related to uses are in one place, and we think we did so in a bit more of a simplified fashion that's easier to understand. We consolidated a lot of uses and we made sure that all uses were defined. And then we did add some use specific standards, especially to new uses that could have additional impacts. And so we wanted to get right out in front of those new uses to ensure that they didn't have neighboring impacts. So that's what those use specific standards are trying to accomplish. And then we will jump into our last chapter, which is the administration and procedures chapter. So I'll spend a couple of minutes here. There were quite a lot of moving parts in this chapter, and this is, I would say, the chapter that got the most amount of simplification. There were a whole lot of redundancies in your current procedures. And so one big thing that's changed here is that table on the right that summarizes all of the procedures in the town. So one thing I really want to point out tonight, especially based off some of the public comment that was received earlier, just general public comment, we've tried to make it easier for property owners to understand how an application moves through the approval process and when notice is required. So you'll see right in the middle of that column, a check mark indicates that that notice is required for those types of applications. And in the land use code draft, if you scroll right down below this table, you'll see how that notice has to be achieved. So just wanted to point that out. It does give the town quite a lot of flexibility still on how to deliver that notice, but it ensures also a level of consistency and that property owners understand when notice is required for what types of applications. The other couple things I'll mention here is that there were quite a few changes in your subdivision procedures. This was really just to make these procedures a little bit more in conformance with how modern subdivision procedures are handled. And so you'll have a minor and major procedure going forward. And hopefully that will simplify the process for small subdivisions, like combining 2 lots into 1. And then next, this historic preservation procedures did receive quite a lot of work as well, working with some of the folks in the town who have specific knowledge in that area and hearing their recommendations. So lots of simplifications for the historic preservation procedures as well. And then the last one I will mention is this minor modification process. This is a new one. So this is an added procedure, and it's essentially a variance light. And so what it allows for is small deviations. They have to be less than 10% just of development standards. And so this has become a really popular tool amongst communities because it really helps make for a more efficient application process. So say, for example, you are submitting your site plan and you know because of site constraints that you're going to need to also submit a variance eventually. This process allows you to combine those. So with your site plan, you can also submit a minor modification. So you'd write that right into your site plan application, saying because of site constraints, I'm asking for a 10% reduction in my rear setback because of a hillside slope or something to that effect. And so you'd still have to meet certain criteria, but it allows for a little bit more efficiency if you're able to show that the reason that you need that modification is because of site constraints. Okay, that's all I have for you guys tonight. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have or hear any comments you might have. And again, thank you so much for allowing me to be here and being a part of this process. It's been a really good one.
Okay, what we'll do is we'll go through trustee questions, comments, and then we'll go into the public hearing where we can hear from members of the public. So trustees, questions, comments. I would say a big thank you to the Planning Commission. This has been a long time coming, and I think they've done an excellent job with it.
I agree. I think they did an excellent job.
Yeah, thank you to the Planning Commission and thank you, Austin, for your work. I am looking for I really like the tables. I think they're really helpful. Notices that would be sent to neighboring property owners. Where would I find that? When is that the case?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'll start and then I'll let Nate jump in if he'd like to. So it's just under that procedures table, and you'll see the different kinds of notices. So you have posted, published, or mailed, and the different requirements for each. Now, I do want to get out front of this issue in that there is still flexibility in this process right now. We do allow for flexibility in how notice is given. More so than maybe some other communities, but we've had a lot of conversations about this in the past, and town staff really believes that having a little bit of flexibility in how that notice is delivered will go a long way. That to say that the notice requirement, you can't get around it, right? So if you have a subdivision application, you absolutely will get notice of that through one of those three methods, or likely a combination of several of them. But you'll see it right below that tables chapter. And happy to talk about that more, or if Nate, you wanted to add anything.
I would suggest that we specify what types of notices are always expected for each type of application. I think it would be wise to always send mailings out for example, for variances or for rezonings or major subdivisions, and probably conditional use permits. Those are the four that just off the top of my head could or should maybe warrant a mailing. But my idea was under this notice column here, we could specify, the three types, represent them by letters, and then in this column, just add the appropriate letters to each. So for instance, for a variance, it would have all three notices. It would have a posting on the property. It would have a notice published in the paper, and a mailing to everyone to all properties that are within 200 feet. And then, for instance, for a minor site plan doesn't have any letters in it, or perhaps, but I think it would be good, especially with the seasonal nature of a lot of the people that own property around here. A mailing would probably be a good idea to standardize that process.
Yeah, I was also shown a copy of Victor's. They just basically have a table. And you just basically pin it up next to your desktop. I would think if we wanted to, we could go both ways. We could either do it here, or we could actually do a table and have that be as part of our policy.
I talked a little bit to Austin about, because the idea of a administrative manual came up with the previous consultant we used, and then that would sort of create, you'd have your code that is harder to change, then you'd have your administrative manual that's easier to change, but then you're referencing two different documents for different things, and that maybe is not ideal. So Austin and I talked just about, I personally, after that conversation, I think it'd be cleaner just to have it included in this table, and just specify the three major types of notices. P for posting, and that would be posting at the site, and we basically post at town hall, at the property site, and then newspaper, N for newspaper, and then an M for mailing, and then just kind of fill in this column accordingly.
What's the table number of that? Could you move the
It's 5-1.
5-1? Okay, thank you.
So it's my understanding that with a mailing, it is to notify the adjacent landowners, and also to provide them an opportunity to approve or disapprove of the plan. And that approval or disapproval is not necessarily the deciding factor about whether a project goes forward or not. Is that correct?
Yeah.
That it's still something that the planning commission essentially uses to weigh their decision about a project. I know that there have been times when those mailings have, been, what is it like, returned to sender because, the address wasn't valid or those kinds of things. I know that's, something that happens in our town. But I think it's really beneficial for neighbors to know what's going on, especially if they're not here year round. And I'm thinking of something even as simple as a fence. I just think if to know what's happening, so you don't arrive back in town and like all, like you don't recognize your house because of the changes that happened next door. Like, is this still my neighborhood? I know I'm not trying to make it more complicated or cause anything that would delay a project. But I do think that it might help just with neighbors being aware of what's going on. And that's, I just think it would pay off in the long run. The comments that were made earlier tonight, I think that's part of it, is not knowing until it's like a public notification. And I think that personal letter is, I just think it pays off in the long run to notify neighbors of pending changes.
Mhm.
I think part of the goal of the rewrite was to make it easier for applicants as well. So for instance, a minor site plan for a fence or a shed or a deck, it's something that's really not affecting a fence, I guess could, but there's standards for those fences. And part of the reason for the land use code, a major reason, was to make it easier on applicants so that if they have a fence, it doesn't have to go before planning commission every time, which could be up to a month wait. And so I would say that, all those types of things are under the minor site plan. So that's, your fences, your decks, your sheds, accessory structures under 200 square feet. So I wouldn't personally recommend doing a mailing for those because that would just add time to the process. But I think it makes a lot of sense for almost, everything else, because those inherently take time, to process and to, often there's multiple public hearings involved at planning commission and board. So I would agree with everything you're saying, except I think that it wouldn't make a lot of sense for the minor site plan.
Yeah, I would agree with that as well. One of the whole main reasons of trying to go through the rewrite was to try to take things that most of the time they just came into the planning commission, just sailed right on through. But yet we would have, and Nate said maybe a month delay. We actually had some that were on like 2.5 month delays just to expand a deck into something that was well within their setbacks. And so, yeah,
And that delay was based on what?
we didn't have any staff at the time.
Oh,
Yeah. So, but everything still at that point had to go in front of planning commission. So we couldn't get the planning commission agendas put up on the website. So we just had to keep canceling planning commission meetings.
So am I hearing that if we were to send out a mailing, then that would automatically trigger a planning commission meeting on whatever?
I would submit that for the minor site plans that it's not noticing, because it's basically is within an owner's property rights to do that. Decks, fences, those things. It's within their property rights.
Absolutely. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not questioning the property owner's rights. I know there's been controversies about fences, and and sheds in the past. I guess if there's a public notification, then, you know, if the neighbor sees that there's a public notification, then I don't know. So we don't want people to have that opportunity. Is that what I'm hearing?
I'm against sending it out for minor site plans.
Okay.
I think what I was saying, if you add a requirement for a mailing for everything, that inherently adds time to the process. This chart basically says that there are two things that staff can decide on, meaning someone comes in, they fill out a perm or an application for either a temporary use permit or something that falls under this minor site plan.
Mhm.
Staff makes a decision on those. So those are the things that are, the goal is to have a quick turnaround on. Now this, this table can be changed at this point. That's why we're, talking about this, but I would say that anything that is decided by staff, which is only two of these things, would not warrant a mailing, but could warrant other types of notices. But the mailing is the time consuming one, especially, I mean, I've had checks that I've mailed that haven't reached their destination for like a month. I mean, it's just crazy. So anyway, I just think that it would be cleaner to keep it no mailings for staff decision items, I guess.
That makes complete sense.
But then the board could recommend or, have other types of notices, for those things as well, or,
I don't know what you've seen in your experience, if this has been an issue, but I do think we want to avoid unnecessary conflicts. And I think just keeping people informed about changes really helps.
I think that's where the review of the standards of fences, for instance, or, those are the setback rules, all those things, the way they're written in here, those are the things that are trying to prevent problems by not having, things built on top of someone else's property line and things like that.
Right.
And I would also say that, or guess that a lot of problems are caused when people don't go through the correct process. So then you end up with something that's, on your property line or whatever the case may be, that hasn't gone through the correct channels. So hopefully this will make it more palatable for people to do the right thing, I guess.
The one thing I would add, Nate, if I can, is just like what you're saying. What we try to work hard on is, okay, what are some of the current issues with something like fences? So for example, one of the things we heard was that there's issues with folks being allowed to build fences over waterways, even if it's completely on their property, even if it's completely within their setback and what have you. And so that's a standard we added, that in no case shall you be allowed to build a fence over a waterway. So we try to internalize a lot of those common issues, and that's true all throughout the land use code. And Lamar worked really hard on trying to issue spot all the common issues and just write them as a standard in the code to try to get out in front of those issues. And then when Nate gets that minor site plan application, or the town gets that site plan application for a fence, he can see like, hey, this is a waterway. You didn't meet this standard. So no, I'm denying this site plan. You've got to adjust this until you meet the standards in the code. So hopefully that internalization of those common issues allows for, two things. One, the town can still meet those big policy goals, but also applicants are able to work through the application process very efficiently, especially for smaller types of projects, while not creating any sort of adverse impacts on neighbors.
I see that chart. Yeah.
And we'd probably do one of those. We're looking at the chart, by the way, up here on that
Yeah.
Becky had done from Victor's for their notices and
Yeah.
even, you know, if it's in the code, then they can make a cheat sheet from this and have something that's easy to.
Yeah, I would really like to see those notices specified. You know, when they're triggered. And so that, you know, obviously that the public could see this too. When they're, you know, working on their application.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's something that would be helpful to include in a motion tonight. If that's something that the board agrees on. So it could be just to say that we amend this table 5.1 to include the specific type of notice with each application instead of allowing for the flexibility which it currently does.
Great, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, trustees, any other questions, comments? Not seeing any, so.
No, one more.
That had
Now
to
this
happen.
this probably goes for everything, but I just want to make clear that things are subject to variances.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. There's a
Yes,
whole
ma'am.
section on that.
Okay,
And
and
in
that could include colors, building materials, those kinds of things that are specified.
I don't think in this code we're specifying colors.
Yeah, we
That's-
don't go to that level of detail with building design, but any kind of development or dimensional standard is applicable to both the minor modification process, which is the one I explained. That's a little bit of a quicker variance process for really small minor modifications. And then you still have your variance process, which was carried forward.
Okay, because building materials was included somewhere.
It is in
but-
that overlay district, but only
Yeah.
voluntarily.
So, but that doesn't mean that that's still not, that a variance couldn't apply to that?
Yes, ma'am, it still could apply to that district. You are correct.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're ready to move into our public hearing. It is 7:55 and we are now in public hearing. Did we have anyone from public that wants to comment? You got one, you got John.
We do have a public comment in the room and Zoom people, just if you want to make comment, just please do a raise your hand thing or something so I could identify you.
So, John Bell at 10691 Illinois. A simple one, and Becky knows this issue, and just seeking clarity. Do we have a list of everyone when notification is required? That's my question. Wow. My time's really up.
We'll send you a bill.
Are you referencing contact information? We use the county assessor site, so if people don't have that up to date, that's kind of their responsibility. We don't have a database of, because everyone uses PO boxes and in town and, you know, we don't have a master database, so we just go off the El Paso or Teller County assessor sites for notice. Anyone on Zoom wish to make public comment about the land use code rewrite?
Okay, if there's no other comments, I guess we're ready to come out of the public hearing at 7:57. And we'll move on to basically voting on the ordinance 2022-03. And trustees, if you have no other questions, comments, I'd entertain a motion. You want to
Sorry.
update table 5.1?
Austin, I have a question. With that update to table 5.1, should it be specified exactly what notices go where at this time?
So you have two options. One is to go through and specify those right now, and you would need to include that in the motion if that's your preference. The second option is to delegate that to staff and to say that table 5.1 shall be updated to add more information on notice types required per application, and staff shall be the decision maker and what types of notices required per each application. Up to you.
I like the second option personally.
I do too, but I don't know if I could repeat it.
Do you want me to take a stab at it?
Sure.
Okay, I move we approve ordinance 2022-03, the land use code, with the condition of updating table 5-1 for staff to identify the proper noticing. How does that sound? I got thumbs up.
I'll second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we approve ordinance 2022-03 as modified. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. And with that, we've been at it for an hour. I'm going to suggest we maybe take a 5-minute bio break, if that's okay. It's 7:59. I could use one. So yeah, let's just recess for 5 minutes.
Thank you all so much. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thanks, Austin. Thanks, Lamar. Thanks, Lisa. Thanks, Mike. Thanks, everybody else on the planning commission.
Y'all did
Thank
really
you,
good job.
Austin. Thank you, everyone.
Anne's
you, guys.
online too. Thanks, Anne.
Okay, what happened? We need to call our board members back in.
Yeah, we can do that, yeah.
Okay.
We'll be back in 1 second.
Catherine?
Yeah, she'll be back.
Yeah, folks on Zoom, we're waiting on one more board member to return, so hang with us.
Yeah, geez.
Okay, it's 8:07 and we will reconvene our meeting. We are at item number 6, resolution 2022-11.
Oh, sorry. So this is just a standard annual resolution, just formalizing the property tax levy for based on 2022 assessment values provided by both counties. So it's essentially they send us letters saying, here's what the assessed value of the property in the municipal boundary of Green Mountain Falls is. Here's the value of it. Here's the amount of money we're going to be giving you to put towards 2023 or as 2023 revenue. So there's not much we can change here. It's just basically a formality that formalizes what that amount is to include as revenue in the 2023 budget. And sorry, I'm trying to get up the
Yeah, and any kind of mill levy increase has to go to the voters, correct? And so this is really just a formality.
yes, and
We're keeping the same mill levy.
yeah, and like I mentioned earlier, I was kind of surprised the assessed value actually decreased slightly, not very much, but I was surprised that it decreased at all from 2021 to 2022, but that's what both counties said. So it is what it is, I guess. Sorry, I'm trying to get to that page and looks like I may have had a bookmark max. Yeah, thanks. Okay. Okay. Sorry about that. So for instance, the El Paso County Assessor total assessment value within the town is $10,938,000. $10,938,310. and Teller County is $678,730. And so that translates to adding both of those together, the total revenue for the town is $204,466.
Any trustees, any questions, comments? And if not, I'd entertain a motion since this is largely, kind of a
Like a formal
exercise, it's
acknowledgement.
formalizing.
And it doesn't have to be read in full.
We can read it if you'd like.
I'm not. It's
You
not,
may-
wouldn't be my choice, but just wondering if that's something we need to do.
Nate, you want me to try to, I can try to
I-
read it from that.
I can if you prefer, doesn't matter. Green Mountain Falls, Colorado, resolution number 2022-11, a resolution levying general property taxes for the year 2022 to help defray the costs of government for the town of Green Mountain Falls, Colorado for the 2023 budget year. Whereas the Board of Trustees of the town of Green Mountain Falls has adopted the annual budget in accordance with the local government budget law on this 13th day of December 2022. Guess we're getting a little ahead of ourselves there, but and whereas the amount of money necessary to balance the budget for general operating purposes from property tax revenue is $204,466. And whereas the 2023 valuation for assessment for the town of Green Mountain Falls as certified by El Paso County Assessor is $10,938,310. And whereas the 2023 valuation for assessment for the town of Green Mountain Falls as certified by the Teller County Assessor is $678,730. Now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Trustees of the town of Green Mountain Falls, Colorado. Section 1, that for the purpose of meeting all general operating expenses of the town of Green Mountain Falls during the 2023 budget year, there is hereby levied a tax of 17.588 mils upon each dollar of the total valuation for assessment of all taxable property within the town for the year 2023. That the mayor is hereby authorized and directed to immediately certify to the county commissioners of El Paso and Teller counties, Colorado, the mill levies for the town of Green Mountain Falls as herein above determined and set, adopted this 13th day of December 2022.
Trustees, do I have a motion?
A motion to approve resolution 2022-11.
Second. It's been moved and seconded that we approve resolution 2022-11, levying the general property taxes for year, actually 2020, for the 2023 budget year. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Our next item is resolution 2022-12, summarizing revenues and expenditures for each fund and adoption of the Green Mountain Falls 2023 budget. There is a public hearing that will embed in this. But first, I think we'll do staff and board discussion and we'll go into the public hearing.
Shall I offer some background? So wonderful. Thank you to everybody that participated in this budgeting process. You all had a collaborative work session with all of your committee chairs as well as your departmental employees in October that helped to fuel your decisions. The 2023 budget as proposed does contain some structural differences from prior year budgets. This is because there were several items in your prior year budgets that have been in the general fund, but they're more accurately reflected in the capital improvement fund. Prior year's budgets can be found on the town's website for comparison. For the 2023 season, we really focused on, we would like to focus on efficiency. looking at those items that maybe we can reduce costs so that that money can be allocated or dedicated towards other expenses. There are also you know, a lot of considerations that were taken in this, seeing the instability that COVID created. We took a very conservative approach at estimating what those revenues for 2023 were. This really does help the town to prevent us from over budgeting expenses or going beyond those budgeted items. Additionally, we also reduced quite a few departmental budget items, knowing that just trying to balance the budget. This was largely initiated just because you all are a new board. This allows you a little bit more authority in those spending, those expenditures. As a result of it, this approach will require that if staff has additional funding needs, that they be brought before you for approval. It's a very nice conservative approach, and it also allows us to you know, kind of review where expenditures were made in 2022. Additionally, you know, this is a working document. It is subject to change. If the town were to receive additional grant revenues, we would need to bring an amended budget to you. And also we have some financial planning sessions scheduled for the beginnings of 2023, date forthcoming. With that, are there any questions as it relates to the budget before we open it up to public?
And we should state that we did some minor adjusting a little earlier. And so I'll have to read the resolution.
Absolutely. There was, we did update the figures as a result of your work session this evening. It was some pretty minor changes that focused largely on a couple of very cost-effective ways to support employee retention.
Trustees, any additional questions, comments? I did receive a couple of questions from the public. I actually researched them, and I'll try to do my best to go over them now, if that's okay,
Please.
before the public hearing. The questions, one was what changed with the budget, and especially from the October audit results. And the next one is a question on private sponsorship. And I actually have a copy of our donation policy that I can read. So what changed with the budget from our actuals of 2021? It's actually in the file that's in the packet. We had health insurance costs rose $26,000 from 2021 until now. In 2022, we added retirement benefits that are now for 2023 totaling a change of $18,800 and change. We also added in 2022 a full-time public works position that roughly hit about a $40,000 recurring expense as well. So the grand total was about approximately 84,000 in recurring expenses that were added. So, and hopefully that answers item one fairly well. I would also like to say that our accounting right now, especially beginning 2021, is much more accurate. I have tried to just look at the budgets from pre-2021 and try to make heads or tails of it. And I've gotten a lot of headaches trying to do it, and I give up. I had a hard time making any real heads or tails. It didn't just, for me, it didn't logically make sense. So I'm kind of focusing on 2021 going forward. I would recommend that we try to stabilize. We actually got written up for that in our audit report in 2021. So I'm recommending that we try to stabilize as much as we can and try to use this process where we're not planning to spend more than what we're bringing in. But then quarterly, we look at things and readdress and see if there's some of these items off the wish list that we can pull in and fund. As Becky previously stated, we've made certain that capital items need to go into the capital improvement fund. And so we've got those moved around. We absolutely must have this quarterly review. So we need to look at things quarterly and try to see how we're actually doing. I would also like to offer major kudos to Nate. I don't know if you all really know what it took to get through the audit, but basically every expense, trying to track down, what a line item it should be associated with, and with revenues as well. And that was it was an absolute daunting task. Everything had kind of been thrown into basically a big bucket, and we basically had to go through, and Nate did the work. And so thank you, Nate. The unfunded items, we're roughly in the general fund, we have roughly about $100,000 worth of unfunded items. The wish list, capital improvement fund had about a $40,000 item. So I would also mention that in this budget, our raise pool is low. I'm a member of the PPRTA, PPACG, and the Transit Authority. Building Department, the three alphabet groups. Theirs were ranging in their expenses increased from around 5 to 8%. So we are low. I think we're considering putting in maybe a little bit of a last minute bonus type of thing to try to help compensate for the fact that the recurring raise pool is not as much as surrounding communities. And with that, if we're ready to, the other question, I forgot to answer the other question. The other question was on the sponsorships for possible. We do have a donation policy. Basically, there's a $5,000 threshold. Donations under 5,000. Town manager or designee can accept that. Donations over 5,000 have to come in front of the board. And town manager is directed to establish accounting procedures as may be necessary to carry out the terms of this policy and to segregate donations to the town from the town's general fund in accordance with all applicable state and federal laws. All donations received and accepted shall be devoted to use either by Parks, Rec, and Trails Committee or the Fire Mitigation Advisory Committee. Board of Trustees is authorized to devote any donations to any other lawful public use by the town. So yes, we have policy in place now where we actually can accept donations. Another idea for the pool had come up with sponsorships, and we can also deal with that too. That'd be advertising. Someone may stick a sign on the side of it. So.
Yeah, I want to thank you for the work. I'm sure it was incredibly tedious, and I really hope that it pays off so that you have a system in place now and things are where they belong. And going forward, I hope it really pays off.
It has already, and it will continue to do so. Thank you. Yeah. Lots of reclassification of things,
Mhm.
dollar amounts, so. Came into focus late in the year, but just in the nick of time, I think so.
Thank you.
The trustees, if there's no other questions or comments, it is 8:25 and we will move into the public hearing. Do we have anyone that wishes to address or make a statement?
Dave, oh, go ahead, Ann.
Is that okay? I just heard Todd mention that he thought we should give more money to the PPRTA and the PPACG.
No,
I didn't understand what you meant.
no, sorry, the mayor was just referencing the
Expenditures?
I was referencing, okay, and I can't remember which one was which, but one organization, instead of 3% COLA did like a 5%, another did an 8%. And so, yeah, we are low compared to the other entities that I'm on. So, it was just purely a comparison.
Oh, because I don't think we need to give him any more. I'm on the Citizens Advisory Committee of those for Green Mountain and I think we do a pretty good job. Sorry. Thank you, guys. Bye.
Thanks, Ann. David Douglas, I know wanted to make a comment.
Yes, this is David Douglas, Fire Mitigation Advisory Committee Chair. Really, I just want to make some comments tonight that are more just for the record. In looking at the budget, it appears that the proposed budget for fire mitigation is $20,000. And if I'm incorrect, please somebody correct me. One thing I just want to point out to everybody, and we've done this many times. Green Mountain Falls is the #1 town in the state of Colorado for wildfire at risk. This has been published many times in many different journals, but we are in the 99th percentile of at risk for wildfire. For the last 2 years, the Fire Mitigation Advisory Committee has proposed to the Board of Trustees a budget of $80,000 plus for documented wildfire programs. Since I became the chair of the Fire Mitigation Advisory Committee in 2020, I think our budget was $20,000. The next year, I think it was 17.5, and if I'm not mistaken, this year it's 15. So this town does not have a track record of making fire mitigation a priority, even though we are the #1 most at-risk mountain town. This budget for 2023 continues to demonstrate that our Board of Trustees does not take it seriously. I've always often heard people say that you put your money where your mouth is. And I guess the few dollars y'all are putting to fire mitigation really says volumes about how you think it's a priority, and it apparently is not. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for your comment. Do we have others?
Anyone else on Zoom wish to make public comment? Anyone else in the room?
Okay, if there's no additional public hearing comments, it is 8:29. We'll close the public hearing. And on this, trustees, do you have any further discussion, comments? And if not, what I should probably do is read the modified resolution.
Probably with mention of what the changes were from the.
Yeah, we probably ought to.
From the budget or the
yeah,
work
just,
session.
Yes, that would be good. Let's identify those.
Okay. So, and the changes made during the work session, actually one was sort of a confirmation. It was already in the proposed budget. It was the basically the 50% dependent insurance assistance, basically for employees. So that is the ends up being approximately $8,550 there. There's an addition of a retention bonus to employees in the 2023 year, a merit-based, or I'm sorry, was that 2022? Okay, so those numbers need to be updated. You can just add 3,000 to the or subtract 3,000 from the general fund number on that. Apologize for that. There's the addition of $1,200 for trail maps. That was a recommendation from the Parks Rec Trails Advisory Committee, as well as $300 for trail ambassador supplies and recognition. Those are the only two changes there. On the capital improvement fund, we did have a change of it was the addition of $8,220 for that fire mitigation grant match. So that made the fire mitigation capital improvement total equal $28,220. And I'm just reviewing this one last time. And I believe that's it. So, so those are the changes that have occurred so far, and those are reflected in the updated resolution, with, of course, that $3,000 subtracted from the general fund amount.
And if it's appropriate right now, I can go ahead and read the resolution. Resolution 2022-12, a resolution to adopt the Town of Green Mountain Falls 2023 budget. A resolution appropriating expenditures and revenues for each fund and adopting a budget for the Town of Green Mountain Falls, Colorado for the fiscal year beginning January 1st, 2023 and ending December 31st, 2023. Whereas the Board of Trustees of the Town of Green Mountain Falls has authorized the budget officer to prepare and submit a proposed budget to said governing body at the proper time. And whereas the town's budget officer, Becky Frank, submitted a proposed budget to the governing body on October 4th, 2022 for consideration. And whereas a workshop was held for the purpose of receiving input from the trustees and the public on October 18th, 2022. And a lot of whereases. Whereas upon due and proper notice, published in accordance with the law, said proposed budget is open for inspection by the public at 10615 Green Mountain Falls Road, Green Mountain Falls, Colorado. A public hearing was held December 13th, 2022, and residents were given the opportunity to file or register any objections to said proposed budget. And whereas changes in the draft budget were done in such a manner that the budget remains in balance as required by law. Now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Trustees of the Town of Green Mountain Falls, Colorado. Section 1, the estimated expenditures for each fund are as follows. General Fund, $751,736.47. Capital Improvement Fund, $296,000 $530. Conservation Trust Fund, $8,030. Section 2, that the budget as submitted herein above summarized by fund hereby is approved and adopted as the budget of the town of Green Mountain Falls, Colorado for the year stated above. The budget hereby adopted shall be signed by the mayor and made a part of the public records of the town, introduced, read, and may be passed and adopted this 13th day of December 2022. Trustees, any further questions, comments? And if not, I'd entertain a motion.
I move that we adopt resolution number 2022-12, a resolution to adopt the town of Green Mountain Falls 2023 budget.
I have a second.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded that we adopt resolution 2022-12, the Green Mountain Falls 2023 budget. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Oh, I forgot something. I need to modify that motion. I apologize. We need to direct. I'm sorry. We also need to direct staff to revise the written document that goes with this.
Your budget message,
The budget message needs to be revised as well.
just to reflect the numbers, the accurate numbers after your work session.
And I'll move that. If someone wants to second it, we can go ahead and vote.
I'll second that.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Okay, sorry about that. I should have had that in with the motion. Okay, moving on to item number 8, resolution 2022-13, adopting our 2023 fee schedule.
This is largely mirrors the 2022 fee schedule. We anticipate having an updated fee schedule in the beginnings of 2023. The reason for that ends up being that we intend to contract out the planning work that will have some associated fees with it until a contract planner is selected. We won't know exactly what those figures are. So we want to be able to work with that planner to ensure that the costs associated are reflected in that fee schedule. In the meantime, adopting the fee schedule tonight allows staff to continue to charge fees for the work that would be done until that planning consultant is selected.
And we also need to update it with the latest land use code.
Absolutely. We do anticipate there will be some changes that will impact the fee and fine schedule as a result of the land use code.
Trustees, questions, comments?
I have a correction. Under the administrative state law for notary public services, you have $5 per document. And it is $5 per notarization, not document.
Thank you. We'll make that change.
So is there anything we need to change in the motion because of anticipated changes?
You can, not because of anticipated changes, but just because of the correction that Trustee King made.
If there's no other questions, comments, I'd entertain a motion on that.
I move that we approve resolution 2022-13, a resolution adopting the town of Green Mountain Falls 2023 municipal fee schedule to include the correction of the notary, the designation that it's per doc, not per notarization.
All right, I'll second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. We adopt resolution 2022-13, our 2023 fee schedule as modified. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Yeah, that carries. Moving on to item number 9, our audit engagement letter for Logan and Associates.
Staff is very pleased to bring this audit engagement letter before you. Approving this tonight allows staff to get started early on our 2022 audit in the early months of 2023. As the town had to apply for an extension in 2022 for our 2021 audit, we are not eligible for an extension in 2023. So we must complete and file our audit prior to the end of July. Approving this engagement letter allows us to get that scheduled for the 2022 audit beginning in the early months of 2023.
Great. This should go a lot smoother too.
Trustees, any questions, comments? And if not, I'd entertain a motion.
I'll move that we accept the letter of engagement from Logan and Associates.
Second that.
It's been moved and seconded. We accept the letter of engagement letter from Logan and Associates. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, moving on to item number 10, our town attorney engagement letter.
So this is another engagement letter that would, it does have a little bit of a rate increase for 2023. It's been a few years since the town has incurred any additional or any rate increases from the legal firm. It's probably a little overdue, but we're thankful that they were able to hold off until the beginning of next year to ask for that. It's approximately $20 per hour worth of a rate increase in most instances. I would say that the majority of the work that the town requires is general counsel. The opportunity to work with a paralegal, if we have it, is something that we'll utilize. And obviously, as things stabilize, our reliance upon the attorney for day-to-day assistance is significantly reduced. So we do anticipate less of a need for simple things from the attorney in 2023.
Okay, trustees, any questions, comments?
I like that double dollar sign in front of litigation. It's like the symbol for a restaurant, the cost extra.
I didn't notice it until now. Always something.
This is approving for 1 calendar year, correct?
Yes.
And when is the last time we ever reviewed or opened it up for bidding processes?
So that's something that you could certainly do. I'm glad that you brought that up because you have not had the opportunity yet to meet the town's legal counsel. The town attorney has offered to come up and meet with you all, get to know the new faces that are here. He is unavailable on Tuesdays, but we were looking at a potential date in January. He's available Mondays and Wednesdays and would like to gauge you all's interest in that and also your availability in the early weeks of January.
Apologies. How much money did we spend last year in legal fees? I know that's on the.
Oh, 1 sec, sorry.
It's all right. So he can't come here on a Tuesday to our.
I think he serves as by counsel for other boards and things that
Tuesday
he's,
nights?
yeah, all meetings are always on Tuesdays. We have a projected year end of approximately $23,000 for this year. And then we have budgeted less for next year, hoping we don't, like Becky said, need to rely on them so much.
So to clarify, he has other town hall meetings on Tuesday nights.
He's either at Buena Vista or Manitou Springs, but he does have Mondays and Wednesdays generally free, and the third Wednesday or third Thursdays of each month.
It would cost us for him to come to our meetings,
Now, is that accurate?
Mhm.
He will charge us to come to our meetings.
Absolutely.
There have been past years where the town spent over $40,000 in legal fees. And one of the reasons was because they had the attorney come to every board meeting,
Oh, wow.
and the board meetings were more frequent, but yeah, the bill jumped.
You're in the business that's normal,
Yes.
but not enough to get him here on a Tuesday night, on one of our board meetings. Okay.
We could, if you think it's worth springing for, but I don't know why.
All right. I mean.
If the
you got
staff
it for a
is,
year, right?
hopefully, I'm assuming the staff is happy with the time in which your inquiries are answered, and
Is that accurate?
Absolutely. Our
with you
current
quickly.
attorney, I've worked with for over a decade. He serves many municipalities and many municipalities that are about a similar size as us. He's very savvy when it comes to small communities. He realized, and he's been the town's attorney, so he's been with you through some very challenging times. He knows and understands the nuances. And I can say that the timely manner and the efficiency in which he responds to staff needs is really appreciated.
So you guys are new. You've been here for a little longer than us, but how many years has Logan and Associates been our town attorney?
It would be Jeff Parker Hoffman. And
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm
am,
looking at the.
yeah,
Right.
I'm not certain
Hoffman.
when the town first entered into, appointed him as their attorney. I could certainly find out.
Okay.
I know it wasn't the same firm that was getting the 40 grand a year.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Okay, trustees, if there's no other questions, comments, I'd entertain a motion.
I move that we accept the letter of engagement from Hoffman, Parker, Wilson, and Carberry PC and approve the 2023 rates.
Do we have a second? It's been moved and seconded that we approve the town attorney engagement letter for Hoffman, Parker, Wilson, and Carberry. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Our next item is item 11, resolution 2022-14, appointment of town officers.
This is a standard end of year process that the town will need to do, which will allow the individuals listed to serve in the capacities that they're listed next to for the year of 2023. The officials that are being appointed or requested being appointed tonight ends up being the town attorney, which is the firm of Hoffman, Parker, Wilson, and Carberry PC. Your town manager, which is myself, the town marshal, which is Sean Goings, and your town clerk and treasurer, Nathan Scott.
Okay, trustees, any questions, comments? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
A motion to approve resolution 2022-14, appointment of town officers.
A second.
It's been moved and seconded. We approve resolution 2022-14, the appointment of town officers. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Our next item Item number 12, recommendation from the Fire Mitigation Advisory Committee, mitigation of undeveloped town rights of way.
David, I think you're still on there. Did you want to address this recommendation?
Yes, I will. The Fire Mitigation Advisory Committee has been working over the last couple of years with CUSP regarding identification of workable acres under the two open CUSP grants, the Furworm and the SFA grants, which originally were for the remediation of 81 acres of town-owned land. We have from time to time looked at the undeveloped town rights of way as an opportunity to do some fuels mitigation work that would essentially be inside the town amongst the private property owners. Earlier this year, we actually remediated one of the town rights of way, which is the Angel Trail, sort of the Iona Scott connect between Hondo and somebody help me with the connecting street there. But we removed a lot of dead conifers, diseased conifers. What it really did for that strip of land was open it up so that aspens could populate that area and grow in much stronger than they have. And actually, we want to promote aspen growth because they're actually a fire resistant or fire retardant tree, but relatively to conifers. So we have roughly 13 or 14 acres of land in the town undeveloped rights of way that would qualify for the use of the CUSP grant to remediate those. And as you can see by this map that was developed by Nate Scott, and I think this is a great map, shows you all of the various locations of the undeveloped rights of way, and they are, all throughout the town. And what this does is, if we remediate these areas, it gives us an opportunity to do a couple of things. One is to demonstrate very clearly to our town residents what remediated property can look like and how we're actively engaged in doing something about fire risk. It, I think, helps beautify the town by removing diseased and dead trees on town-owned land. I have had a number of town private property owners ask me over the last year or so, why can't something be done about the dead trees on town rights of way? So this is our opportunity to do that. This is going to be a very, unlike any of the other large scale projects that we've done, where we're essentially working, a large block of acreage of town-owned land up on, above Thomas Trail. This is going to involve working town-owned land that is adjoining private property, which means we're have to be careful about private property boundaries and making sure that we have resident buy-in, that we are clear about what the work scope is. So this is going to involve a lot of communication with residents to educate them on what this project is and what we're going to be doing, and getting people to buy in. And one of the things that we want to try and do is get people to sign a release that would release essentially CUSP if they made a mistake and cut a tree that's right on the property line or something like that. But we're going to give a best efforts to identifying appropriately the property lines, have homeowners agree that this is something that they support and want to have done. And so we've worked hand in hand with CUSP, town management, the town manager and town clerk, The mayor, trustee Donzello was involved to really talk through this and make this a priority recommendation, hopefully to get it done in 2023. Now, the two CUSP grants, one terms at the end of 23 and the other one terms at the end of 24. This by no means uses up either one of the two grants because it's only 14 acres. But we're asking for the Board of Trustees to approve our recommendation or approve this project based on the Fire Mitigation Advisory Committee's recommendation. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, thank you for this. This came up, I'm not sure how long ago, but I think it's a great idea and necessary. What came up before was the whole issue of private property lines and that we would need to conduct surveys of these properties. And, you know, that of course is cost prohibitive. So are you proposing that in lieu of doing a survey, we create an agreement with the private property owners?
Well, I think it's more than just one thing. First of all, what CUSP has agreed to do is come in and identify to the best of, you know, there's nothing that's 100% like a survey, right? But they have GPS technology that helps them identify very close where the boundaries are. Their proposal would be that based on their GPS findings, they would mark the trees or, you know, some reference point that would be the approximation of the boundaries of the properties. And there would be a bit of a safety factor, if you will. So they would move away from where they have identified by GPS the property boundary, maybe a few feet, just so they're not crossing over. They would do that in conjunction with us, as well as contacting and inviting the private property owners to be part of that. We would mark the trees. It would be visible as to where the trees have been marked. In that case, if anybody has any dispute with that, we can deal with it before the work gets started. And hopefully we could get people to sign off on a release, which CUSP would really like to have. So we have, I think Nate has asked the town attorney to draft a document that would be appropriate for this project.
So when you say you would deal with the issue, if a private property owner was questioning the boundary line that was determined through GPS, that the way of dealing with that would be this written agreement?
I would say the written agreement is sort of belt and suspenders. Obviously, we're not going to be able to get every single property owner. I mean, if you look at this map and the number of private properties that our town rights of way adjoin, I think it's unrealistic to believe that we're going to get 100% of the property owners to engage with us, to sign letters. So we're trying to come up with a best practice approach here to do something that is for the benefit of the town. And as somebody pointed out, we're cutting trees on town-owned land. We have the right to cut trees on town-owned land. And if we're following a margin of safety and staying away from property boundaries, unless, you know, we have explicit agreement with the property owners agreeing to where the boundaries are, I'd say we're well within our rights.
Well, I think it's not only is the town within its rights, but I mean, it's to the benefit of the property owners. I mean, I'm not negating this project in its benefit to the town and to the residents at all. I just don't want us stepping into anything that could end up costing more in legal fees than it would in, fire mitigation. So I think, that something something along the lines of some kind of a PR campaign, which, I know that the fire mitigation committee is already, doing those kinds of community communications with flyers and whatnot. But I think that this project in particular, because it's touching on, or at least getting near people's private property, that a campaign that really helps folks get on board with this, so they see the benefits, and really it's cost saving to them if they want to be taking care of their house and their property. I'm just thinking we want buy-in. We don't want legal issues.
100% agree. That's why the proposal and the recommendation is written to include a community education, various forms of media to inform people, in every way we possibly can.
Yeah, that's something that the Fire Mitigation Committee has discussed extensively in the meetings every month. And, this requires action, to get it done as soon as possible. I think they've done a pretty good job of, coming up with ideas on how they're gonna reach out to the community at large, and specifically in regards to these right-of-ways, these individuals who are abutting, town properties. At a certain point, as David was mentioning, it's going to be, town property, and our responsibility to remove a lot of that fuel to clear these rights of ways in regards to anything that's going to be contentious up against, a property owner's line, property line. Again, I think this comes down to community support and communication. I'm hoping, of course, optimistically, that 100% of these people that are living against right-of-ways are going to be supporting this. But until we engage these individuals, there's no telling, how successful we'll be at that. I feel pretty positive about it. I think that identifying these 13 right-of-ways and having these folks go out there, with their GPS and identify within, so many feet of town properties and residential properties. I mean, it's a start. Going to have to probably get this going sometime sooner than later.
Yeah, honestly, this came up at least a year ago, if not more. And the reason that we didn't move forward on it was because it looked like legally we needed to do surveys to determine the property lines. And the cost of that is just,
Yeah, that's
prohibitive.
astronomical.
So, I see, neighborhoods, so that could certainly be another angle if neighbors are encouraging neighbors, to take care of the whole area. So it's not just, just an individual property owners. But I want to see this happen.
I think there's going to be a lot of support. I think that, again, talking to these people, going to their door, mailers, however, the committee is going to decide how they're going to communicate with these individuals, utilizing like a good legal, letter.
So that at this point that the attorney's been asked to
Notified,
create
yeah.
something.
I just gave her a heads up, just that it was a potential thing to work on. I asked her to not work on it until the board has discussed, but it should be a minimal effort by them, but I told her I forwarded her the information that you're seeing, the recommendation and the language and the project scope and all that, and just for her knowledge. So she's prepared to draw up something.
Okay.
And we feel like the board would probably be more comfortable voting on anything, maybe perhaps seeing what the agreement may look like, but
I think an agreement is great. I'd also like them to look at the big picture, but I mean, I know our town, unlike a lot of towns, is not exactly plotted in a way that, these property lines, it's an issue.
they're messed.
It's not a clear cut kind of thing. And I just don't want us getting any hot water. So
I think this will
I
probably be
think-
handled like a triage situation, right? Where, those properties that may, be contentious on what we're trying to do, save the town from burning down. I think that we're probably going to have an awful lot of folks on these right of ways that are, yep, go ahead, Sure, I'll walk around with you, yep, you could take this down, and I don't care about this one, get it down.
they probably want you
know.
to take down a few dead trees on their
Yeah,
property.
and it's probably going to happen, right? I mean, again, this isn't like clear cutting. It's going to be very select on the trees that are going to be taken down.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think that it all starts with communicating and conversation with these individuals who are sharing the right of ways, what precisely it is. Again, it's not going to be clear cutting. It's going to be very, it's environmentally friendly, for the town. As David was saying, aspens, of course, are something that are, we want more of course, in this town, but not to digress on what particular type of trees we're gonna, but I think that you're probably gonna find an awful lot of people right out the gates, just, okay with this and supporting it. With those right of ways and properties, residents that are gonna have issues with it, if any. I'd be very surprised, but maybe that's a little further down the totem pole,
And correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought I heard if CUSP does not have contact with the adjacent property owners, or has not made contact with the adjacent property owners, that they were going to have more margin.
That's right. They haven't contacted these individuals yet. They're going to be going
Yeah,
out
but
there.
if they did not have, if they were unable to make contact with them, that they were going to add margin. Did I hear that
Right,
right?
to start marking
Right.
the trees that they identify they're going to take down anyway. Yeah.
Yeah.
That
Well, it's
GPS works
exactly-
within 15 feet.
It's exactly what we did on the Iona trial. We didn't get any permission from any adjoining property owner. We didn't get any signed documents. They simply did their GPS survey. They came off their property line by about 3 to 5 yards or feet, some distance off the property line, and basically cut everything in between. And I think we actually, by doing that, we had property owners who then engaged CUSP to come and cut more trees on their property.
Yeah,
So,
I'm not surprised.
so, I really think this can have a positive effect. And I think that CUSP is handling this in a very careful way, so as not to cause any lawsuits or, damages. They're trying to be cautious because they're at risk as well.
So the other thing is too, is that these GPS systems are accurate within 15 feet. So like he said, it's a few meters, of some wiggle room there, against the property lines. So at the end of the day, it's going to be town property. Also, it's not necessarily going to be that trees are just going to come down. There's going to be a lot of mitigation with the ladder fuels on the, 10 feet up off the ground, several feet up. And again, of course, the trees being very selective. So there's wiggle room of about 15 feet on those GPS systems. That, I mean, there shouldn't be that much of a discrepancy with
This all sounds good.
yeah. Sounds great.
I have had communications with property owners who said that CUSP pretty much just clear cut past their fence line. And now folks on Thomas Trail can look down on their deck when before they had some privacy. So, I mean,
Well,
that's not what they were
I think
expecting.
that was cusp.
That was not cusp.
I don't, I think that
wasn't
was
cusp,
my,
yeah.
yeah.
So that would be the difference, is that like cusp is a pretty crack unit of folks, and it's
Okay.
it's a different scope than what the fire break was up there on the Thomas Trail area. Yeah.
Well, again, this is a great project. I'd
Mhm.
really like to hear back from our legal folks about
Okay.
how to proceed.
I have a question for Mr. Douglas, if I may. Did you get an indication from Adrian at House, at what point do they need notice or an approval from the board so that they're able to mobilize and accomplish their goals for 2023?
Well, they're wanting to get started on this right away. I mean, so this is going to take a lot of time to, to go in and mark the rights of way and, do whatever education and notification we want to do with the community. So he did not say you have until this time to get it done, but he's standing by ready to go and begin the GPS and marking trees as soon as we get the go ahead. But as the trustee Catherine said, the Fire Mitigation Advisory Committee has presented this plan now for 2 years. So we've already burned 2 years. So if we burn another 2 years and get in there, the cusp funds are gone. So, my recommendation is we move with a sense of urgency.
Is there an alternative that CUSP would be willing to offer should this not be an appropriate time to move forward with this project?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand the question.
Is there other work that CUSP could do instead?
The question becomes workable acreage. The steeper the acreage, the more costly and less likely it is to be workable. Can we find acreage? Yes. Can we find the acreage that is fully covered under this grant? We don't know for sure. We're trying to find and get as many workable acreage into the remaining funds as we possibly can before they term out.
Thank you. And most of these right of ways that we're looking at are undeveloped alleys. Is that correct?
That they are, is my understanding that were originally platted and laid out as streets. But because they are essentially unbuildable as streets because of the topography, terrain, they will forever be undeveloped street rights of ways.
What's the typical width of an alley in Green Mountain Falls? 15 feet? I guess
20, I think.
20 feet. So with a margin of error of a couple meters on each side.
Yeah, I think again, it's important to stress that action is important, I think, at this point, just to get this kind of stuff done. If we can get cusp marking, it's going to be a minute before I'm expecting an awful lot of precipitation probably this winter. I'm assuming that this is correct. But there are things to do in preparation for the actual cutting, right? There's identifying what they're going to cut, marking it. I'm assuming with tape. Is that correct, David? And
the plastic ribbon.
Yeah, the plastic ribbons. And of course, starting a conversation with the individuals that are on these rights of way. I think that these folks from CUSP are going to be working legally on town land. In the meantime, if it is a concern to ensure that legal gives us the permission would be the wrong word, right? I mean, they're supposed to work for us, but
Top cover.
yeah, to kind of cover down. I think that's rational. I don't think that's a bad decision. But I think the purpose of this is to get it started.
Could CUSP
way.
Could CUSP start marking, tagging diseased and dead trees regardless of what property they're on?
Not on
Because
private
there's
property.
Private
No.
property. issues.
So,
Yeah.
so when it comes to nuisance trees in our code, how are they identified?
Well, first we have, I don't know how many chapters that need updating. We'll probably be trying to tackle that in January, but the nuisance tree definition does not yet include the dead and dying. Even though we voted on it, we need to get it into the code so it's enforceable. So we need a code update to get that enforceability in there.
But but it sounds like the folks that work with CUSP are qualified to make
Yeah,
those
they're-
determinations.
Yeah, they're pretty sharp cookies. They've been doing this for a hot minute. So these are issues undoubtedly that they've run into historically, and the cutting's not going to happen tomorrow. The identification of these trees, nuisance trees, ladder fuels, and the conversation that will be had with those community members, the residences on those properties, abutting the right of ways. I mean, that's all a part of this, what we would be voting on. Because that's surely the way to do it, right? To have conversation with these residents, but
I
in the
guess I
meantime-
don't see the issue with conditional approval either. If the only thing we're really waiting on is the lawyers
Is
to
it-
come
is a
back and
letter.
say, yeah, you're okay.
And the
what's
verbiage of how they're gonna, when they communicate with these residents, with the citizens of the community, are you checking this box? Is it okay? The idea during the fire mitigation committees is, of course, if these neighbors are available and they're more than likely going to walk around these properties with the owner, and to ensure that there's not going to be any of that. Short of waiting another God knows how many months for a code rewrite on further defining nuisance trees or whatever.
Yeah, I don't think we need the code
Yeah,
rewrite
I mean, we
for,
did that, right? So,
I don't think we don't need the code rewrite for right of ways.
yeah.
So-
I would actually, like say, if the only thing that's at contention here is, getting the thumbs up from lawyers, I'm perfectly okay having a conditional approval.
And they're already informed of the situations, and that the verbiage in those agreements, if they come right out the gates like that, it's not a good thing. Can't do
Well,
this.
it
That's
seems
a
like
different story,
marking
but-
trees is a really good place to start.
Yeah, I mean, that's always where it's going to start, with the marking trees, but there's again going to be some dialogue, some communication with the residents. My fear is that this is all a BB at a freight train in the first place. We're not where we should be. We're definitely, no pun intended, burning the wick at both ends here. Maybe need a little more chutzpah in the action department, just to start the ball rolling. Legal is notified and they're tracking. So, God willing, they write something that's, pretty soon that the fire mitigation committee and CUSP can utilize with, the residents, of course, and their properties abutting these right of ways. But I think to hold off on this for another 30 days and then maybe another 60 days or another 90 days, or for the last 2 years that they've been trying to get this done, like, I got to go with the fire mitigation committee and other, committees when they recommend a thing. I I think it's pretty well thought out. They've had some good discussion with it. Adrian and all these folks in Cusp, I mean, they're sharp and it's not their first rodeo. I think time is, well, the clock's ticking and we don't have that much more time.
Well, if
left.
we don't need surveys
Yeah, that's.
to do this legally,
Yeah.
that's great.
yeah,
But
that's-
I
that's
want to
the goal.
know that for a fact.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, the town attorneys are.
I mean, the
tracking.
fire mitigation committee is not going to be on the hook if the town is sued.
Yeah, no, that's true. But we're talking about town-owned properties and
If it was,
certainly we can
if it
start
was that
somewhere.
cut and dry, it would have been done already.
I don't know.
I can tell you.
'Cause I mean, there's like this pushback. No offense to you. 'cause I love-
This was the pushback, I don't know
Yeah.
what, 2 years ago.
Yeah, I don't think we can really afford that for another 2 years. I think the clock. is-
I'm not saying, I'd say go ahead and start marking trees,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but
I
don't
would-
cut anything until
I'd
we.
be willing to make a motion if you
The
guys would
conditional.
would be open to it. I'd move we approve the Fire Mitigation Advisory Committee recommendation conditional from the acceptance from the town attorneys that the process is what? I'm looking for a word. Is what? Vetted? Let me try it again. I move we approve the Fire Mitigation Advisory Committee recommendation conditionally with the condition that we get that we get acceptance from the town attorneys. How's
Before
that?
before they start cutting, they can maybe start marking off. And
I
communicating.
think we
saying
should
that-
probably notify people
Yeah,
before
we gotta
people
probably
are-
notify first.
Right,
tromping around
Yeah.
and
right, but
the
that,
backs of.
the
But I think that was
mitigation.
part of the plan, I think.
Right, but the
Yeah.
fire mitigation and CUSP have the permission to make contact, establish contact. And when contact is made and approved.
So
start
basically,
marking.
it's, my motion is to accept the plan, but we gotta, with the condition that the town attorneys come back and say, yeah, really were
Okay,
not.
in which case they can start communicating with residents
Mhm.
and marking trees and getting it done.
Yeah.
Okay.
So do I need to restate that motion again?
I mean, I would think that we could start notification and the process of getting a document drafted up, but, there's gonna come a point in some of these areas where you're just not gonna be able to contact anyone. So at that point, is it worth working on a 15 or 20-foot strip of land where your GPS is plus or minus 10 or 15 feet? I think some prioritization of these areas needs to happen to target some of them to start, like maybe some of the wider right of ways instead of the alleys. And I also think there should be some sort of effort to identify alternative spots as well, just in case this whole process takes 2 months, then you're wasting 2 months when maybe there's other acreage that could be worked sooner.
Yeah, certainly.
Can you remember all that? So I'm gonna go back.
That
to
was a
my
part of the motion. but,
My motion is to accept the Fire Mitigation Advisory Committee's proposal with the condition of its pending legal review.
Sound good.
Do I have a second?
I'm sorry, I need to hear that again.
Okay. I'm recommending that we approve the recommendation from the Fire Mitigation Advisory Committee with the condition that it's pending legal review.
Okay, just ask you a question right before. we
No.
Go for that.
No more questions. The motion's on the table. We either need a second or the motion needs to die because it's 9:30 and I want to go home.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded that we accept the recommendation from the Fire Mitigation Advisory Committee with the condition of pending legal review. All in favor, say aye.
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 I'll abstain.
Any opposed?
I guess I'm abstaining.
So we had 3 ayes. Aye, aye, aye. Motion carries. Okay, moving on to our reports. We'll go on to our trustees and I'll start at this with Catherine this time.
Oh, well, I just want to thank the church in the Wildwood for a beautiful Advent service on Sunday. Really extraordinary music and just a really beautiful event in our little town. And also, I want to thank everyone who was involved with the tree lighting, the Outlook Lodge, Green Box, Sally Bush Community Center, Jan Martin, and Church in the Wildwood again. And Santa Claus for making an appearance. It really wouldn't have been the event without Santa Claus. So we were really lucky that he agreed to come visit us.
Mayor Claus.
John,
I don't have anything.
okay, we'll start down that end. You two have anything?
I do not.
And Sunday mentions he didn't. The only thing I'd mention is we do have cards for staff to be for board member signature up here. I'd also say that PPACG is definitely trying to get the lobbying forces in place because they're anticipating a lot of potential unfunded mandates coming down from state legislature. So yeah, we're trying to get our lobbyists going there. Any committee reports?
No, none received.
About staff?
I don't have any. I think, were you going to talk about the correspondence or?
I'll wait till correspondence to talk about correspondence, but Marshall Goings is here. We'll hear from Marshall Goings next.
Marshall Goings, if you would, if I could get a copy of your reports, I've been asked to put those into the newsletter. So. Okay, if there's no staff reports, correspondence.
I'm not entirely sure how to address correspondence in the meeting. I included them in the packet. I'm starting to or we'll try to be more diligent about it, I guess. But Carolyn Bowers specifically asked to include her comments regarding the Zoom meetings. So those are in your packet as well as up on the screen here for your reference. I don't know if there's typically discussion or anything, but we included a few other things in correspondence as well here.
Thanks, Nate. The other items in your correspondence, you do have a couple of memos from legal. The first one is Senate Bill 22-099, the sealing of criminal records, because we own and operate municipal court. This is a result of the decriminalization of marijuana. So there are some requirements that will be need to happen as a result of that. The marshal's office, along with the town clerk as the municipal court clerk, will work with the DA to ensure compliance on that one. The second one that you have is for sorry, guys, I'm turning into a pumpkin. Digital accessibility. This was House Bill 21-1110, which creates new standards for accessibility to protect individuals with disabilities. This is specific to the municipal websites and whether or not documents are readable. Currently, our website is compliant. However, not all of the documents that are on there are. That happens when, for example, a scanned document is added onto it. Anything that's signed ends up being scanned. And then, of course, the orientation of them becomes a little bit wonky to the extent that the digital readers are not functional. The town is working with Civic Plus, who helps with our website, to look at some options for how to make that compliant. And I believe that there will also be some funding available to help support the town in doing that.
Yeah, this is another one of those examples of unfunded mandates. And I can tell you, I had to do this at the federal level. And it's time consuming because at our level, we had to go in and explain all the figures and all the tables in words so the readers could do it.
And the very last piece of correspondence, I really believe that Nate should read for our friends on Zoom land.
Who unfortunately have mostly left, but we did receive a GOCO grant for continued fire mitigation. So this is similar to the co-swap grant from last year. It's work time or crew time award, except this one does require a 10% match. So 8 weeks of crew time is valued at $82,200. And so we did include that $8,220 in the budget as accepted earlier. But this is a very exciting because of the way that the grant was written. We do have some flexibility in there to go in and clean up some of the fuels that were left because that wasn't part of their prescription because of the way that grant was written. But this grant will allow us to coordinate with Mile High Youth Corps again. It'll be the same youth corps that did the co-swap work. So we can coordinate with them. And my idea is to hopefully kind of have their crews separated into 1 or 2 crews. One can kind of focus on cleanup and scattering and things that need to be resolved from last summer. And then while the other crews can kind of continue that cutting work in a more, a more beneficial way, I guess, so that there doesn't have to be cleanup after that. So we learned a lot from last summer and we'll put that into place with this grant. And so that's very exciting.
Okay, thanks, Nate. Any more items to go over?
I don't think so.
If not, everyone have a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, and we are adjourned. 9:32.